Sphinx Tribal, something I've wanted to build for years but without the proper commander, is finally ready to be assembled. Like Voltron, we're going to piece together the Sphinx Tribal commander deck on the cheap, or at least as cheap as we can make it while still making it hilarious and good. Just wait and see what kind of gimmicks we have in store for you today. I'm so excited for this. We'll be using TCG player pricing throughout the video because the deck is definitely on the cheaper side, and if you want to see the list in its entirety, or buy any of the pieces because you fall in love with it too, just click the first link in the description. Let's do this thing. We'll begin with our Lord and Savior Unesh, Criosphinx Sovereign, the entire reason we're here. 4 of anything and 2 blue for a 4/4 legendary creature Sphinx with flying. Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Whenever Unesh or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under your control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Unesh is amazing in a couple different ways. First, a flying 4/4 for 6 isn't half bad. Second, all your Sphinx spells cost 2 mana less to cast. That's a whole Soul Ring less. And considering most Sphinx are pretty expensive, this is huge on a commander. Third, the trigger activates whenever a Sphinx enters the battlefield, not on cast, just enters. That's important. And finally, fourth, your opponent separates the 4 cards into 2 piles, and you get to choose which one you want. You have the control. It's like drawing extra cards, but you aren't drawing any at all. Speaking of not drawing, this is about to get hilarious. We could have built Unesh as a regular Sphinx Tribal commander with a bunch of control cards, every Sphinx that draws cards, blah blah blah, but no. We're going way deeper than that. I got this idea from a friend who runs an anti-draw Nath of the Guilt Leaf deck. Say hello to Possessed Portal, Omen Machine, and Uba Mask. Yeah, we're running an anti-draw Sphinx Tribal Prison deck. We are officially off the rails. Remember, Unesh doesn't draw cards. We don't want anyone drawing cards. The portal shuts that off right quick, forcing permanent sacrifices if players don't discard. Savage. Omen Machine hates cards in hand, and Uba Mask only lets players cast what they draw on that turn or it's gone forever. Thank goodness Unesh doesn't draw. You know, since Unesh doesn't draw, it's a good thing we're running Panharmonicon. Double Unesh triggers on Sphinx entering the battlefield. Now you get it, this is our deck. No draw, all the draw. Enjoy. Since we're now running a deck designed around other players hating us, we might as well take advantage of the fact that no one can draw. In this deck, Arcane Denial is simply an easier to cast counterspell. That's delicious. Windfall forces everyone to discard their hands but then draw nothing, because they probably won't be able to. Same thing with the memory half of Commit to Memory. Cast it from the yard, shuffle everything, no one draws a thing. Hilarious, fantastic. This is Sphinx Tribal after all, so we should focus on some Sphinx, but it's important to remember that the entire deck is designed around getting cards in our hand without drawing them. Good thing there are plenty of Sphinx to help with that. First, we have the Sphinx that help fix our top deck or at least give us information we need. Prognostic Sphinx, Horizon Scholar, and Sphinx of Draar Isle are all great for this. And Solid Sphinx in their own right, each of them triggering Unesh on entry to the battlefield, remember? So good. After that, we have a crew of Sphinx that get cards into our hand without drawing them. Conundrum Sphinx loves scrying, Arbiter of the Ideal has an inspired trigger we can abuse knowing our top deck, and Sphinx of Uthun is just more non-draw card draw. In addition to our card advantage Sphinx, which all cost 2 less when Unesh is on the battlefield, by the way, can't forget about that, we're also running some Disruption Sphinx, some flying cat, tiger, lion things that just make your opponent hate you and themselves. Chancellor of the Spires can start annoying everyone at the table as soon as the game starts. Sphinx of the Final Word is going to give all of our instant and sorcery spells uncounterable, which is just absurd in a blue deck. Guardian of Tazim taps down everything that moves because this is a mono blue deck and we're running a lot of islands. And Alhamrit turns off each opponent's best card in their hand, assuming they even have a hand at that point. We're also running Sphinx Ambassador because it'll let you cheat one of your opponent's creatures onto the battlefield under your control, and it's only 5 mana with Unesh. Ridiculous. Master of Predicaments to get our spells out faster, even the smaller ones. And Glyph Keeper because this is a 3-drop with Unesh on the battlefield. We can embalm it later and get even more triggers, and it protects itself. Everything we want. Sphinx galore. Oh, one more Sphinx-related synergy. We're running Deadeye Navigator. We're gonna blink our Sphinx to Kingdom Come, getting even more Unesh triggers than we can handle. Whenever a Sphinx enters the battlefield. So broken. Triggers for days, people. For days. Now that we've seen the majority of our Sphinx action, we have to fill the rest of the strategy with synergistic non-draw spells. Jace, Architect of Thought, Impulse, Dig Through Time, and Fact or Fiction all get cards in your hand without you drawing a single one. Commander decks are big, 99 cards, but with all these spells and triggers from your Sphinx, you're going to get what you want fast. Now, we can't always count on just drawing what we need, of course not, which means we need ways to get our game-locking artifacts online fast. Say hello to the Tutor Brigade. Treasure Mage can grab both Omen Machine and Possessed Portal. Fabricate gets any artifact we want, broken card. We have some low-cost artifacts that we can sacrifice to Arkham Daxon to go get our biggest artifacts and put them directly onto the battlefield. Well worth the additional cost. And in case we need to do multiple huge things per turn, Planar Bridge lets us search and drop something on the battlefield all at once, a one-stop portal shop. Master Transmuter lets us swap a small robot for a huge one, so basically Soul Ring for the portal, I'll take it. Well worth the cost. Argent Sphinx, while not helping artifacts directly, is helped by them. Letting the Sphinx blink itself triggers Unesh, just good synergy there. And Seed of the Synod is in the deck as something simple to sacrifice or return with Arkham or the Transmuter, all good stuff. Additional artifacts that make decent search targets are the following. Phyrexian Metamorph, solid staple, worth every penny. It can copy a creature or artifact, important to us. Caged Sun is quite good because the deck is mono blue and we can always use more mana. Even with Unesh lowering the cost of our Sphinx, we have a lot to do with free mana, so can't say no to that, and the +1/+1 isn't nothing. Proteus Staff is a powerful piece of equipment. It's pseudo-removal, but all we care about is that it helps get rid of giant threats we don't want to deal with. Potential to give them something better? Sure, but this is used to get rid of stuff we legit can't deal with. And we're running Elixir of Immortality because Unesh's trigger puts whatever doesn't end up in your hand into the graveyard. If we're triggering that over and over again, we need some insurance. This is some insurance. This tribal deck has an average converted mana cost of around 4. It's a little bit higher than the average deck, but it is mono blue with a heavy controlling aspect. We're going to need ramp. Burnished Heart is a good early creature that can help stem the bleeding and eventually give us a few lands. Solemn Simulacrum gives us a land and eventually a card, just good. Then we have rocks, Sky, Diamond, and Sapphire Medallion. I know the Medallion technically isn't a rock, but it basically is. In addition to ramp, we're going to need removal. We're a blue deck, gotta be able to get rid of things we don't like, especially if we can't or didn't counter them. The deck comes with Imprisoned in the Moon, Rapid Hybridization, and Pongify. Imprisoned turns everything into Emrakul after she took her moon nap, so basically turns them into a rock. Both Hybridization and Pongify destroy creatures we don't like. Our opponents do get 3/3s, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that's better for us than whatever we just annihilated. For classic control cards, we've included Propaganda to discourage attackers, Cyclonic Rift, Capsize, and Evacuation to really make it clear that creatures on the battlefield, no good, we're not about that. Evacuation is what we use right before we go Sphinx crazy, by the way, or if we have a ton of mana acceleration and want to get a bunch of new triggers from Unesh, there's also that. Either way, these are cards designed to help us stay in the game until we get our flying army online. The last non-land cards in the deck we have to mention are the staples: Soul Ring, Lightning Greaves, Worn, Power Stone, Nevinyrral's Disc. They're all always good, so we have to have them. Moving away from artifacts, we're also running our Chaomancer for general utility, Venser, Shaper Savant for more disruption, and a way to get through uncounterable shenanigans, Counterspell for when we can actually counter things, and Rewind for the ultimate counter feel-bads. Nothing quite like countering a spell for free. Delicious. Now let's talk lands. Luckily, the land base is relatively simple, helped keep the cost down, but we had to include a few cool cards. Myriad Landscape, Ghost Quarter, and Temple of the False God are all par for the course, but we're also running Halimar Depths and Soldevi Excavations. Halimar Depths is great because it helps us fix the top of our deck without drawing anything, perfect for some of our Sphinx triggers, and Soldevi Excavations is simply one of the best kept secrets in this format as far as I'm concerned. You do have to sacrifice an island, but you get to tap this for 2 mana, and you can scry 1 every turn if you want to. Another solid synergy with our Sphinx, both great lands, well worth including. In summation, Unesh Sphinx Tribal is about locking down the board, locking down your opponent's hands, and basically playing blue the way it was meant to be played, just, without drawing cards. Instead of drawing cards, you get to, draw cards. You get what I mean. It's a hand-lock control nightmare for your opponents. So what do you all think? Is this Unesh deck something you might be interested in playing? It took us a long time to put it together and make sure that it worked, but we finally did, and it cost a little bit under $150. I know that may seem like a lot, but there's so much value in this deck, and most of these cards simply have to be in here. If you enjoyed the list and want to see the entire deck in full, or buy any of the cards for it, you can click the first link in the description. As a matter of fact, you can buy the entire deck right now by clicking that link. Blink. Super easy, and you'll have the most annoying Sphinx Tribal deck known to humankind. Anyways, as per usual, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.